Welcome to Book Banter with me, your host, Diane Burkhart. I hope you will join me every Wednesday as we explore all things to do with, well, books. Let's get on with our show today. Hello, my happy people. Today is December 11th, 2024, and welcome to the season finale of Book Banter with Diane Burkhart, your book talk podcast. This has been an absolutely amazing year. So many fantastic things have happened and so many incredible authors have been part of this show this season. I am just exhausted. Honestly, we have been so busy and had so much going on. And today we're going to end on an incredibly high note. I'm going to get into our guest today in here in just a minute, but I do have a few little announcements to make, and there will be more information at the end of the episode as usual, because I want to let you know what's going to be starting up in season 4, because we've already started gearing up for that. But I do want to make sure that you all know that we will have new content for you, even during our holiday hiatus between season 3 and season 4. Through the rest of December and all through January, we are going to be airing the interviews that we did while we were at the Frankfurter Buchmesse in Frankfurt, Germany this year, the world's largest publishing convention. We spoke to authors. We spoke to industry professionals who are in publishing and printing, and we spoke to some fans. So we want to bring all of that information to you while we're taking a little bit of break, getting ready for season 4. And I can tell you, we have already got authors booked for the first 4 months of season 4. It's incredible. As soon as we opened the guest applications, they have been just pouring in. And it has been so much fun going through all of them. You are going to love the content that we're going to be bringing you. And we're going to start out the way that we did last year. Since we began our season in February, we are going to begin with a love fest. We're going to be bringing you various romance authors from different subgenres in that category. Everything from young adult to a little bit more spicy content. There will be something for everyone. And of course, after the Love Fest is over, we're going to be bringing you content from all the genres that we can possibly find. We cover just about everything except for 3 categories. We do not cover erotica, politics, or religious doctrine. But other than that, anything goes. So if you are an author and you are looking to publicize your books and would like to be part of season 4 of Book Banter with Diane Burkhart, the Book Talk podcast, just go to our website, burkhartbooks.com, and fill out the application to be a guest on this podcast. And having done all of the proper little advertisements, I'm going to stop with the blather and get right to our guest for today because she is amazing. I have been wanting this interview for so long, and I cannot believe that we get to end season 4 with this author. Our conversation was so much fun. She was even better than I had hoped, and you are going to love her. Please welcome to Book Banter with Diane Burkhart, the incredible, multiple New York Times best-selling author and just an incredible human being, author Tosca Lee. And as usual, the way that I like to start these episodes is just to have our guest introduce yourself and tell our audience what you are writing.
Oh, gosh. Well, my name is Tosca Lee, and I live on a farm in Nebraska. I am married to a farmer. That was a plot twist I never saw coming. That happened in 2016. So I've historically done historical fiction, biblical, ancient historical, more modern historical, and then I've also done thrillers. And so this time I'm combining those 2 genres together, and I'm doing a medieval thriller. So that is what I'm working on. It's about the European witch hunts.
Oh, I'm interested in that one. One of the things that I have always found so interesting about your career is you do something that they always tell you not to do. You have books in different genres. I mean, you have a lot of books that fall under Christian fiction and historical fiction. You have books that are considered thrillers. And yet you have a fantastic following across these different genres. How do you manage that?
I'm very fortunate.
How did you build your following to be able to carry that over into all your books? Because you have many that are New York Times best-selling books.
Well, the answer is by accident. The honest answer. I didn't plan this out. And I think, at least for me, but I think for many of us, and you can tell me if this was the same for you too, Diane, but, I think so many of us enter this journey, this writing journey. We're trying to get published. And then the market does its things, publishing houses do their things. And, the journey is not like plotted out ahead of us. And so for me, I was actually working on a fantasy novel way back when. But the first book I actually sold was this novel about a fallen angel. And so that started my career in this trajectory that took me along the biblical and ancient historical lines. But after a while, I just decided, I really would like to write something more contemporary, something thriller-esque. And my whole reasoning for that is the fact that I don't like to eat the same foods every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love hamburgers and I love sushi and all this, but I don't want to eat the same thing every day. And I don't want to read the same thing every day. And I don't want to write the same thing every day. And writing is hard, and writing novels is hard. And if you can't have fun doing it, then it's going to be a really long, hard road. So for me, I just try to do what makes the most sense, whatever that next step is. And at times it's been a fork in the road that went a different direction. And I'm lucky enough to have readers who will come along for the ride, if for no other reason than curiosity. So I've got really intrepid readers. And so whenever I say, okay, here's the next one, I've been very fortunate that they've been up for a new adventure.
Well, I personally love it whenever I find an author who does this, because I love reading historical fiction. I love reading fantasy. I love reading mystery thrillers. And if I can find an author that I love their style and their world building and their character descriptions, I'm going to read all of those different genres that they put out, because I know they're going to give me the kind of books that I want to read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Whenever you were ready to do your first book, how long did it take you from your concept to actually getting it published?
Oh, okay. Well, let's go back in time, shall we? I wrote my very first book in 1989 after my first year of college during the summer. And that was a historical novel. It was about the Neolithic people of Stonehenge. And
Ooh.
I've always been fascinated with, these mysterious places in the world. So I wrote that book. I did try to get an agent, and I made all the mistakes. I did it completely wrong. Back then you had to send a query letter via snail mail with a self-addressed stamped envelope, and so they could reject you on your dime, right? And when they ask for the manuscript, you're supposed to send the whole thing in loose in a paper box. Well, I bound it, and you're not supposed to put a cover on it, and I put a cover on it, and I did everything wrong. That book never got published, and it didn't deserve to be published. But that was my first try. And then the book that eventually became my first published novel was one I wrote around 1999. And I wrote that one very quickly in about 6 weeks. And I thought, okay, this is meant to be. And no, it was not meant to be because it took 6 years to sell that book. So I finally got that book sold. It came out by the time it went through all the editing process and all that stuff, it came out in 2007. So we're talking 1989 to 2005 or six when it sold. Long time. The answer here is a long time.
How do you not get discouraged in that time?
I don't know. I think I'm just stubborn and I don't know when to stop. But the other thing is my background is in ballet. And as a ballet dancer, you're always striving to be better and to do things just a little bit better. And there's a tenacity that is built into that life. And so I attribute a lot of it to my ballet background,
Hmm.
actually.
Well, I know it takes some serious work and dedication to do ballet well, so
Yeah.
I can understand how that can translate into your writing career too.
I think it did.
Now, one of the things that also impresses me about your work is you also have books that you have co-authored with other authors like Ted Dekker and your latest one with Marcus Brotherton.
Yes. Yeah.
What is it like working with a co-writer?
That's a whole different animal because when Ted and I wrote a trilogy together called The Books of Mortals, and it's a dystopian futuristic trilogy, and we brainstormed it from the ground up, plotted it from the ground up, and our approach to each book was a little different. We plotted it out, and then on the first book, I took the first stab at the first draft, and then he'd go in and rewrite it, and then I'd go rewrite him. And we remarked several times that the whole process was so much longer than it would have taken either one of us to write the book individually.
Mhm.
Our second book went faster. We had built trust and we understood one another's styles a lot better. And our third book just whizzed by. I want to say we wrote the third book. And by that time, we were trading off taking the lead on first drafts. But I want to say we wrote that book in like 2 months because
Oh,
we had
wow.
the process down so pat. With Marcus, it was completely different. He reached out and said, I've got this back burner project I've been working on off and on for 7 years in between other projects. And Marcus is very prolific. He said, I'd like a co-author. I want to know if you're interested. It's about World War II in the Philippines. And I didn't know a lot about that, but I am a pretty tenacious researcher. So when I said yes, he said, okay, well, here you go. And he did something really unusual. I think it's unusual. And he handed over his drafts and he said, here you go, take my baby and do what you will with it and be as free as you can.
Wow.
And that takes so much trust, I think, to
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
yeah. And I took them and COVID happened and I said, well, I'll talk to you later. And he didn't hear much from me for about 2 years. So that was different because I had a starting body of work and then I did go in and pull it apart and add to it and subtract from it. And so very different process both times.
Whenever I see somebody co-authoring something, I just always flash back to group projects in college. And I'm like,
Oh,
oh.
yeah.
And I realize that here you're working with another professional who has an established career and they have obviously a good work ethic and they're really good. But for some reason, I cannot get that image out of my head and it just terrifies me. So whenever you
Yeah.
hear about these two established authors working so well together, I find it fascinating because I cannot picture myself being able to do that.
Luckily, like you said, there are careers on the line. And with the case with Ted, we had a contract for that book. My book with Marcus, we did not. We were both in between projects and we were just hoping we would be able to sell it somewhere and we did. But you know what you're going for at least. And
Mhm.
and you don't have the slacker in the group, right? Like you do
Yeah.
in college, or the person who's, not showing up or whatever.
So now why don't you go and tell us a little bit about the Long March Home?
The Long March Home so it took 12 years between the two of us. I added 5 years to the process. And
Wow.
it's the story of three best friends who grew up in Mobile, Alabama, and who enlist in the Army in 1941 and are shipped off to the Philippines, which at that time was considered a really plum assignment. And I mean, for many reasons, it's the weather's wonderful. You're in paradise. The dollar goes far. Beer is cheap. You stop drilling in the afternoon because it's so hot, and you can do other things. And so it was paradise for them until December 8th. What I didn't know was that within 10 hours of Pearl Harbor being bombed, the Philippines was also bombed and plunged into World War II. So the following morning over in the Philippines, they are entering the war. So for these three boys, they're suddenly plunged into war. And it's a war of logistics as much as anything, because as they're fighting, they are outmanned, outgunned, out provisioned. They're cut to half rations, quarter rations. And as they make their retreat to this peninsula in the Philippines called the Bataan Peninsula, the situation is really dire, and it culminates in the largest American surrender in history in April of 1942. And for those who survived the war up to the surrender, it's actually just the beginning of this horrible chapter in history, because what happens next has become known as the Bataan Death March. And it's where the POWs are marched 60 miles in 6 days to a POW camp. And they begin almost 4 years of captivity as POWs. And the conditions are horrible. And so it's a story about survival and brotherhood, friendship, and hope.
I just had a flash on like the Trail of Tears with the Cherokee Nation.
Yes. Yes. And we reference it very briefly in the book, but absolutely.
Now, I know that there is a female guerrilla commander in this book,
Yeah.
Philippa Kulula.
Yeah, Philippa Kulala. And she is real. She was historical. And there were female freedom fighters in the Philippines at this time, which makes sense because the men have all been fighting, and the women are the ones who are now protecting their country. And she's a fascinating lady. And Marcus found her and put her in the story. She was really interesting. Everybody loves her.
Why do you think it was important to use an actual person and not just create your own character?
I think it just helps show the veracity of everything that's happening. I mean, General Wainwright makes an appearance in there as well. Our three main characters are fictional, but everything that happens to them in the story happened to someone. So I think it's just nice to include those historical figures.
Well, and you also have a character in there, Claire, who is back home and she is unwed and pregnant. Why was this an important character to add in?
Claire is the fourth best friend in the group, and she's the older sister of one of the boys, of Billy. And she's also the love interest of the main character, Jimmy, and his best friend, Hank. So what we did is in the story is every fourth chapter, we go back in time, back to Mobile, back to these kids growing up, coming of age, falling in love, doing these things that kids do, getting in trouble, all the things. And we did that for a couple different reasons. One of the reasons was to give our readers a respite, because the present timeline of the story is so grueling and so gritty, and there's so much hard stuff happening, that to take every fourth chapter and go back to see how these bonds were formed between them, to go back and have this nostalgia of this more innocent time, is a good break for the reader. But it's also a chance to show how these relationships became so knit together. And then the stakes become that much higher for why these friends all need to survive to get home.
Was it important for you to bring the whole story full circle for these friends by the end of the book?
I think so. I'd like to give, not every story has a happy ending, but it's important to me to write stories that are inspiring, that offer hope, that are full circle in some way, that offer some kind of satisfaction and closure to the reader who has invested their time and their money in this story.
The next book that I wanted to talk about, I'm like so excited about this book. Demon, a Memoir. Just the title had me. Why did you decide to make it that title? Why is it a memoir?
Okay, so it's Demon, a Memoir, but it's actually a novel. But there is a memoir happening in the book through the course of the book. And so it's kind of a meta approach to titling the book. But it's funny because readers are very split on this title. Either they're drawn to the book because of it, or they're wary of the book because of it. And there have been times when I thought, maybe I should have titled it something else. And I did recently release a fourth new edition of this book. And I thought maybe I should change the title, but no, this is the title it's known by. And not every reader is for every writer, right?
Yeah.
So I like the title. I think it's juicy. I think it's very apt. It is the story of a fallen angel, a demon, telling his life story to the main character, who's a Boston small press editor. And I think it works.
I love it. And I was looking at the different cover art that you've had for this since the first publication, and I
Mhm.
love your current cover art for this one.
Oh,
I think
I
it's
do
perfect.
too. I just love it. It's very deep red, and that
Yeah.
kind of deep red is my favorite color. I don't know if that says about me, but I love it's so rich, and then there's this splash of turquoise on there, and I just love it.
Mhm. Now, give us a little synopsis of this besides just a demon telling his story. What
Mm.
happens?
So it's the story of Clay. Clay's kind of the everyman. He's the main character. He's recently divorced. He's kind of drifting through life, unsure of his direction, especially after his divorce from his wife, who has left him for another man. And one night, as he is in Cambridge, the Cambridge area of Boston, and going in for dinner, the stranger comes up to him and says, "There you are. You're late. I've been waiting for you." And of course, Clay thinks that this is a mistake, but as it turns out, this mysterious stranger seems to know everything about him. And Clay comes to realize that this is not a human. This is not your average person. It's also not, as he first thought it was, some writer trying to get published, right? Because
Yeah.
he's an editor. And he thought, oh, it's a writer, pulling out all the stops, trying to get published. But it is, in fact, a being who had been alive since before the creation of the world, and he's intent on telling his life story, and he wants Clay to write it down and make a book of it. And so he tells his story throughout this book, and we don't know what his end game is. We're not sure what he's after until later, but he tells his compelling story of his time before the creation of the world and before the creation of mankind, and what life was like then, all the way up to the present time. And so that's the story. Yeah.
And one thing that I really liked about this is you play with this theme, and it seems like you play with it often too, about the idea of irrevocable actions. Whenever you do
Yeah.
something that you can't take back, and how you
Yeah.
deal with that.
Mhm. Yeah. That, an irrevocable action is a terrifying thing to me. And I mean, you look at so much of our life, we can unsend an email,
Hmm.
right? We can go backwards on a TV show we're watching if we miss something, but there are things that we do that once done, you can't take back.
Hmm.
And I find that absolutely terrifying. And so that is one of the themes of the book. And how does the aftermath of that play out?
I'm kind of curious. It's like, since you find that terrifying, have you ever found yourself in that situation?
I think it's like one of the situations that I try to avoid. And I I hope I'm not alone in this, but I do have a certain amount of social anxiety,
Hmm.
things like that. I am someone who does have obsessive compulsive disorder.
Ah, me
And
too.
so, okay, you do too. Okay. So, and I feel like those kind of feed into each other just a little bit
Hmm.
with, the social part, the OCD, and I'm not sure exactly how they all go together, but I tend to second guess myself. I tend to replay things a lot,
Yeah.
and like replay over and over and over, right? And examining things, and um, so somehow that all goes together.
Yeah, my husband often comes in, will just look at me, and he will know that I'm replaying things in my head, and he'll just go, "Stop it."
Yes. Yes. And I tend to repeat things, and I'll repeat questions. And my poor husband is like,
Hmm.
okay, you've asked me this question. The answer has not changed. And I'm like, yes, but I need to ask it again. Like, was I stupid when I said this, or was this okay? Or, whatever it was.
Yeah, we should introduce our husbands because they could form a
They need
support
a
group.
support group. They do.
If anybody has missed the issue, go back to the October issue of Book Banter magazine and check out the book review that is in there and read up on Demon and Memoir. And be sure to click the buy link to get a copy for yourself. Now, the other book that I want to talk about, since we are airing this for Christmas,
Mm.
I wanted to speak about your book, Havah, The Story of Eve.
Mm.
What made you choose this story?
Remember that long lull? The book that I wrote in 6 weeks that took 6 years to get published was Demon. So
Hmm.
it became Demon, a memoir. And during those 6 years, I kind of knew that I should not just be waiting around and I should start writing something else, which is the advice I always give other writers. I
Hmm.
didn't take my own advice very well. I only wrote the first few pages of a new book, but I have always loved stories like The Red Tent by Anita Diamant. It's
Hmm.
actually, that book is one of my favorite books of all time, and it's about this obscure figure in the Bible named Dinah in the Old Testament, and she's just very briefly mentioned, but Anita Diamant fleshed out her life, gave her a whole story, and told it in such beautiful and sumptuous language. That's why she's up there with what, like Anne Rice to me, as
Hmm.
far as my influences and inspirations. And I was thinking, what other stories are there that should be told? And I grew up in the church and I grew up hearing these stories all the time. And, you know, women like Eve are vilified,
Hmm.
to put it lightly.
Yeah.
And I wanted to explore her story and what her life might have been like. And part of that fresh new approach for me was using non-transliterated Hebrew names. That's why she has the name Havah, which is the Hebrew name for Eve,
Hmm.
rather than Eve. So it's not Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel. I tried to, step back slightly by using these non-transliterated names. And I sold this book on the prologue, so I only had one page.
Wow.
Had no idea what I was getting myself into and how many questions I would need to answer. But the book became a beautiful journey and is very near to my heart. I overwrote this book by 67,000 words, too many,
Wow.
which is a lot. I added a couple of those chapters back into this new edition, but the rest remain on the cutting room floor. But it was my readers write to me and they're ordering hardcovers of this now because now it's out in hardcover for the very first time. And I'm surprised and touched and humbled to hear how many of them say that this is their favorite of my books to them. So it's very gratifying.
Well, and I love the new cover art that you have for this one as well,
Isn't it
because
gorgeous?
it's
Yeah.
just it's so perfect for the story.
It's so vibrant and beautiful, and it's very hard actually to land on cover art for
Oh God,
something
yeah.
like this. Just in general, right? I mean, how many of us have seen covers or comps where we're like, try again?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not it. But this one caught my eye, and I was so happy with it.
Well, and I wanted to ask too, because with Demon and with Hava both, these are both the fourth editions of these books. What
Yes.
prompted you to redo these books?
Well, I really want to keep them available to readers who want them. And so they've been through three publishers and they've been out in different formats like, ebook or paperback or
Mhm.
audiobook, but not always at the same time. And so before I re-released these new editions, they were, I think, only available in audiobook and whatever print copies you could find online, mostly used. There were some on eBay that were like $150 or something like that. So it was
Wow.
hard to find them, and I just wanted them to be accessible to readers who wanted them. And then I wanted to offer them in a hardcover edition for the first time because they are the only two of my books that are not in that were not in a hardcover.
Well, and one thing that I was really kind of interested about with Hava is you have like this incredible descriptive style, but okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here and I may be completely wrong on my assessment of this, but when I was reading it, I was really kind of curious about the language that you used when you were having Hava describe or Eve describe Adam. because she
Mhm.
was talking about his eyebrows being a hawk above his eyes, everything. I'm like, it seemed like interesting language to use to describe him, but then it like hit me. I'm like, okay, she's a new being, and these are the things that she is seeing and can reference to describe them.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I didn't know if that's what you were going for, but it's like it
Mhm.
just hit me. It's like, oh my God, that would make sense.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. She's a new being. The book begins with her opening her eyes. And this book is written in a different style from all my books are written in different styles. My thrillers are written in a very different style. This one, I would say, is the most literary of my novels, and it's meant to be lyrical. The language is meant to be sumptuous. And when she says, that Adam's brows are like a hawk above the mountain, or, whatever, I wanted it to be, like you said, something that she sees that she can reference, but also I wanted it to evoke some of the poetry of books like Song of Solomon in the
Mhm.
Bible with those descriptions. So yeah, that's how that happened.
It was just so funny because when I was reading that description, I thought, this seems like odd language. And I started thinking about it, I'm like, oh my God, I bet that's why. It's like, that's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I had to think about it completely differently than I would think about describing someone in my other books.
hmm And that
Uh,
makes so much sense that is perfect for this character.
oh, thank you. Thank you.
Now, your description of the actual Garden of Eden, is this something that you just wrote for the book, or is this actually how you picture it?
Who can know? But I read some really interesting books. I mean, you can ask anybody, anybody who believes in an actual Garden
hmm
of Eden or in Eden, where was this? And you'll get theories everywhere, from Africa to somewhere in the Fertile Crescent. And I happened to read this archaeologist who was comparing the creation story to the Epic of Gilgamesh and talking about this particular area called the Zagros mountain range between Turkey and Iraq, and how it would fit this description of the mountains like gates and things like that. And I thought, this is great. So I went with that area as the garden and the confluence of the rivers and everything there. And just kind of built and mapped out this beautiful cradle for the beginning of civilization as I was beginning to write.
The one thing that seems like always comes down to this story of Eve, no matter what version it takes, there's
Mhm.
always the question of, do you think that Adam would have eaten from the tree if it hadn't been for the creation of Eve?
Yeah, that's such a intriguing. Somebody needs to write the story where he doesn't do
Yeah.
it. Somebody needs to. My thinking is, when I started the story, I wanted to show this perfect union between two people, between two souls, so perfect that they didn't even have to speak out loud
hmm
if they didn't want to. And so my thought is that it would be unthinkable for him not to follow, but who knows?
I think this would be an absolute fantastic gift for anybody for Christmas. Somebody who just loves a good piece of literary work, somebody who is very interested in biblical stories, somebody who just wants to read an intriguing adventure. I think this would be a fantastic Christmas gift.
I think so too. But I'm biased.
Just a little.
Just a little, yeah.
So now seems like the perfect time to do our 5 quick questions that never turn out to be quick, but I'm too stubborn to stop trying. Are you
Okay.
ready?
No, but yes.
So I do know that you like playing video games with your kids. What video games do you like to play?
Oh gosh. Yeah, so lately they've gone on without me and they're playing Madden and stuff like that. So they had this zombie game. What was it called? It's on the tip of my tongue, but I haven't played it now for a few years. It's not World of Warcraft. Call of Duty. We play Call of Duty.
Oh, with
And
the zombie
I'm not
version?
very
Yeah.
good. I'm not really good. I don't have the right coordination on the buttons and stuff. But these days it's mostly football-based games. But
Mm.
then there are some beautiful games. My oldest son had this game that takes place in an Asian setting, and the graphics were just amazing. And I cannot remember the name of that game, but that was amazing. Many people don't know this about me, but my very first job out of college was I wrote for a computer magazine.
Oh,
And
wow.
one of the things I did was I covered games. This is 1992. So games would come on these CD-ROM discs.
Hmm.
Remember those? So they come on discs. And the graphics at the time were,
Not good.
well, we thought they were cool, but I look back. So when I see these games now, I'm enamored with how far they've come. I'm
Oh,
not good at, yeah.
oh yeah. My first game system was the old fake wood grain Atari, and I
Oh,
started with
nice.
Pong. Okay,
I,
so
oh, I love Pong, and also my cousins had Adventure, and that's
oh
the one
wow.
where the bat comes and steals your stuff, and,
Yeah,
and
I love
I
that one.
just I thought that was the coolest. I could have done that forever,
Oh man,
and
and
those were
Zelda.
not good graphics.
See, and now I'm totally addicted to Fortnite.
Okay, yep. My kids played that. I really like the dance parts.
Oh yeah. See, and they even have big dance parties sometime.
I remember Fortnite, and I just remember the dance parts. That was my favorite part. I'm not good. I can't win at these things. So
So I don't ever try to win. I just play all of the quests. I do
uh,
quests. And then I get mad when people kill me while I'm in the middle of quest.
right, that's such a bummer when you get killed.
So now question two. What has been your favorite family vacation?
Oh gosh, as a whole family with the kids and everything.
Yeah.
Well, we were just one of my twins. So our kids, our youngest ones are twins, and they just turned 20. And I was just talking with one of them the other day. I just packed him off to college, and he's gone back to school. But we went almost 2 years ago. We went to Puerto Vallarta, and we went to an all-inclusive resort, and then the boys had their own room. Our daughter had just gotten married, so it was just the boys and us, and they had their own room. And because it was all inclusive, they could eat as much as they wanted to, whatever they wanted to, which they thought was great. The pool was right there, the beach was right there. But then we went zip lining,
Oh,
and none of us had ever been zip lining before. And and my one twin, his name's Gage, was just saying, "Gosh, that was so much fun," and it really was. And we also saw whales while we were there, so
oh,
it was
nice.
pretty amazing. Yeah.
I love stuff like sibling. I'm an adrenaline junkie though. I have done like
Ah,
bungee jumping and skydiving and all that kind of
okay, I
stuff.
would not do that. I'm not doing that, but the zip lining was okay. My husband would love nothing better than to go skydiving, but I can't. I can't. I can't.
See, I always have a rule though. I only do this on like milestone birthdays, like 25, 30, 35, 40. Because that way, if I get killed doing it, it's still kind of cool because I died on my birthday.
It's an even kind of number, right? It's
Exactly. That's where that obsessive compulsive stuff comes
right.
in.
I know.
So
Yep.
now, question three. What is a guilty pleasure movie for you?
Guilty pleasure movie. Okay. How long do we have? Okay. It doesn't matter how many times I've seen it, and I don't know how many times. It's been a lot. Any time that any of the Hunger Games movies are on TV, I will still watch them.
Yeah.
And I'll do other stuff, but the Hunger Games, the Aliens movies, I love Aliens, Bohemian Rhapsody, love that movie. But for some reason, it seems like the Hunger Games movies are on all the time, and I can't stop myself, even though I've seen them all so many times.
I am like such an Aliens fan. I have actually even bonded with a German here at Comic Con. We met in line getting pictures for Michael Biehn.
Uh-huh.
and we are still friends. He sent me
I
like
love it.
an aliens cookbook.
What?
Yes, where you can make recipes that look like the alien on a platter and things like that. It's fantastic.
Oh my gosh. So is Romulus out where you are?
Yes,
Okay.
probably going to be a weekend thing. And
I
they have
haven't seen it yet.
somewhere they have a popcorn bucket that is an alien head.
What?
I don't know where this is available, but I have seen it online and I want one.
I want to know how much those cost. Yeah,
Like,
that's
I
our
have to
next.
figure out where they are though.
Yeah, yeah. That's a collector's item, I would say.
Yeah, it's a must. Question 4. Do you have any hidden talents that have no ability to help you in your writing?
Okay, and it's very hard to describe if you haven't seen it in action. I spent a summer at Oxford studying economics, and I came home with this very valuable skill that I learned from somebody else in my class that has nothing to do with economics or Oxford. But we, at some point during one of the meals, somebody took a pea off their plate, just a round green pea, put it up to their pursed lips, tilted their head back, and very gently blew, and the pea levitated.
Oh,
So
wow.
you tilt your head back and you just blow out of your lips. And if you're very careful, the pea will start to rise up and spin. And so I can levitate peas.
Oh, man, you know I'm going to be trying that later.
My kids are amazed. Not really. It won't win you any friends, but and you'll end up with peas all over your floor. But next time you have peas, choose a very nice, perfectly round one. And just make sure you tilt your head all the way back and try not to choke on it if you accidentally inhale it. So
I'm just imagining my husband walking into the kitchen and the floor is just
going,
covered
what are
with
you
little
doing?
peas. And he's like, what
Right?
are you doing? It's like, mind your business.
Yeah, right. Tosca Lee told me to try.
Oh, goodness. Okay, question 5. If you hadn't been an author, what do you think you would have done for a career?
I'd be Marie Kondo. I would be, she's the lady that goes and organizes everybody's drawers and closets. And she's written books about this, and she shows people how to fold their underwear so it's neat and tidy and looks nice in their drawers. I would be a professional closet organizer, cleaner, outer. I love doing this. And when I was single and lived alone, I had this ritual after completing every single novel. I would take a few weeks and I would go through my entire house and I would clean every drawer, every closet, the storage room, and I would throw out as much stuff as I could. I'd get rid of stuff, I would reorganize, and that is my great joy.
And plus, that feeds right into your obsessive compulsive
It
needs.
does, it totally does. And it's kind of therapeutic.
Yeah.
Then you look around and you don't, there's no old stuff. I never owned a junk drawer because everything had its place. And that's how I liked it. Then I got married and acquired children. I married a single father. So it doesn't work as well right
Yeah.
now. Yeah, but the kids are older and we're almost empty nesters. I'm kind of back to cleaning stuff out again. So, but I think I could be a good professional closet house organizer. What about
Yeah.
you, Diane? What about you?
I have actually learned to let a lot of stuff go, but I can tell you before I got married,
Mm,
it's like if you would go into my closet, everything was in order by season, like short sleeves to long sleeves, casual
mm.
to formal. If you open my drawers, I had 2 sock drawers. One was all the black and white and gray, and they were in order by the grayscale.
Ah, so
I had,
satisfying.
I know, right? And I had another drawer that had all the colors, and they were in order by the color wheel.
Ah, yes, yes. See,
And
now I
God
don't do
help
by
anyone who
colors.
put a gray one in
Oh
with the
no,
colors.
no, no, no. That is not okay. I don't do by colors, but I'll do by sleeve length,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. But
Okay, now
yeah,
here's the question. Your bookshelves, are they in order by author or title or subjects?
none of the above.
Really?
They are in order by how the books look on the shelf where I put them, because I want each shelf to have its own aesthetic. And so when I go looking for a book in my office and I have a lot of shelves, I could be hunting for an hour. I mean, I don't know where they are, but what I do know is I like the way they look when I decorated with them. So I did not do that by any of those, which is kind of surprising, but I'm very happy with the aesthetic overall.
I actually worked for like Barnes and Noble for 13 and a half years while I was going to college.
Mhm.
And when I lived in the United States, I had to get rid of all my books when I moved to Europe. It was like
Ah,
the worst day of
ah,
my life.
oh.
But I had two sections that were fiction and nonfiction, and they were in order according to categories and then by author and then by title within the authors.
Oh, yes. Well, and that's how it should be, especially if you ever want to find anything,
I'm
right?
surprised I didn't create a card catalog for them all. Oh my God, this has been so much fun. I could talk to you all night, but I'm sure you have other things to do too. Please tell
Uh,
everybody again who you are and where they can find you.
my name is Tosca Lee, and you can find me on my website, which is Tosca Lee, ToscaLee.com. I'm on social media on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, very rarely, not very good, but I try my best. And on X, but I will tell you, my 160-pound German Shepherd is more popular than me on all of those. So if you like dogs, you can go see my dog on my social media.
That seems to be the thing, though. Every time I put my dog in my video, I get like twice as many hits.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's like, but he's adorable, so I can't really get upset.
Everybody loves the pet videos and pet. And you know what? I do too. And when I
Yeah.
can't sleep in the middle of the night, now that, I'm over 50, wake up in the middle of the night, can't sleep. I'm looking at animal pictures, like
Oh, yeah.
dog videos and cats being jerks, It's like
Those are the most fun.
I think so too.
And of course, all of your information will be in the description of today's podcast, as well as on our website, burkhartbooks.com. And you have a book review for Demon, a memoir in our October issue of Book Banter magazine. And you are a cover feature author for our December, January year-end book buying guide issue for this year.
Thank you so much.
So we're going to make it really easy for people to find you and your books.
Thank you so much for that. I'm truly honored.
So there you have it, folks. My incredible interview with the amazing author, Tosca Lee. Be sure to go and check out her website and all of her books. She has got an incredible catalog of publications that you are going to just be amazed with. She is multi-talented and a multiple best-selling author. And I have to say, if you are a fan of animals, you are going to love all of the content that she does with her gorgeous German Shepherd, Timber. He is definitely worth following too. And now let's get to the rest of the announcements. As I said, during our holiday hiatus, we will be airing all of our interviews that we did at the Frankfurter Book Messe in Frankfurt, Germany, the world's largest publishing convention. And also, during this hiatus time, I'm going to be working on bringing all of the Book Banter magazines to print. We will be selling them through Amazon. There is already the first 2 issues from 2023 that are available in one issue that you can buy on Amazon. Just search for Book Banter magazine or search my name, Diane Burkhart, and you'll be able to find it. We also have a link on our website at burkhartbooks.com on our magazine page. So you can just click and go and buy your copy. I hope to have all of the issues that are currently available on our website in print form by the end of January. Cross your fingers. Hopefully there'll be plenty of time to get that all done. Now, I do have a bit of sad news regarding Book Banter magazine. We have decided to stop publishing our magazine. It has just not turned out to be financially viable, and we're going to just cut our losses and stop publishing the magazine. If you have purchased a downloadable copy of any of the current magazines, be sure to go to our website and download your copy if you haven't already done that. After October 1st of 2025, none of the magazines will be available in digital downloads on our website. We hope to make sure that they all stay available in print form on Amazon, but if you've already purchased your copy, you won't be able to download it after October 1st of 2025. So make sure you go get your copy now. And of course, if you want to keep up with everything that is going on with Burkhart Books and Book Banter with Diane Burkhart, the Book Talk podcast, be sure to join our mailing list at burkhartbooks.com. We do not spam you with a lot of information. One email a week goes out just to let you know what is coming up in the podcast that week. And other than that, we try not to bug you too much. It is free to join and you can stop at any time with no strings attached. So what have you got to lose? In our newsletter that goes out about the podcast, we also have book recommendations and we have links to my own books, which I published under Stephen Burkhart, the Into the West Saga serial. If you like historical fiction that is also categorized as Christian fiction, you just might like these novellas. It is a cliffhanger serial, but the saga is complete, so you never have to wait for the next book. They are all published and ready for you to read. I think that just about covers everything that I wanted to get in here today. So I'm going to wish you all a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Yule, Happy Chinese New Year, whatever you celebrate during this time before we come back in February. I hope you have a wonderful holiday and a fantastic new year, and you come back and join us for season 4. So now you know what time it is, folks. It's time for you all to go forth and be very happy.